Okay. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll of the joint City Council School Committee Facilities Subcommittee.
Chairman Kennedy,
Here.
Chairman Leary,
Here.
Council Leahy,
Here.
Council Mendoza,
Here.
School Committee Member Gignac,
Here.
School Committee Member Ross.
Here.
6 present.
Thank you. Just quickly, our agenda is brief. It's the Lowell High School facility, the current outstanding work slips, facilities K through 8, action plans for future facility discussions. This is our first joint facility meeting of 2013. What I'd like to do is first thank the Chairman Kennedy for taking some of the initiative to work with us and the rest of the City Council subcommittee working with the school facility subcommittee. The first topic is the Lowell High School facilities. What the school committee has done we've had numerous motions regarding the facility, and in particular the school science labs. But one of the motions we also had was regarding sitting down with the public at large and sitting down with the City Council and UMass Lowell and other interested parties, business parties, to really talk about the future of Lowell High School. And as you go through the work orders that are still outstanding and look at the ones that are even complete, you can realize that the facility, parts of it being very old and parts of it being from the 1980s, is in desperate need of work and constant work that the folks in the city put into it, as well as our own custodial staff. We're coming up for accreditation in 2 years, 2015, and in an effort to begin that preparation, my conversations with the Chairman, Councilor Kennedy, have really focused on potentially getting ourselves a kind of like a commission that would look at the facility part of the high school, a commission of interested parties, be it business leaders in the community, UMass Lowell and other parties that would be neighborhood groups, Friends of Lowell High, et cetera. This is at the advice of Councilor Kennedy, who was actually a counselor who voted in favor of the 1980 expansion at Lowell High School, and I think that's kind of the historical way that building actually came to fruition. So I guess at this point, talking about the Lowell High School facility and the work orders, I think we need to really be bold and take a look at what we want to do with the future and really ascertain what the questions are in terms of what that facility needs going forward. And with the expertise of Councilor Kennedy, I guess I'd turn it over to you to see really kind of what happened in 1980 and what we can do at this point as a joint meeting to see if we can facilitate getting a commission, put it together to have some advice to recommend to both the council and to the school committee going forward. What we're doing tonight in the Lowell School Committee meeting is we are actually going to have an RFP going out to a consultant to take a look at the facility in preparation for the upcoming accreditation. So we will be taking a look at that, and I guess what we would envision is having that consultant work with this commission who would come back with alternatives to both the city administration and the school administration, and ultimately alternatives for the city council as we go forward with looking at what types of costs are going to be needed to meet the needs of the Lowell students that will attend Lowell High School. So I don't know, Councilor Kennedy, if you have any thoughts on that in terms of...
Well, no, I think it's first of all, let me point out that Councilor Rita Mercier is here, Councilor Joe Mendoza is here, the city manager is here, and Assistant City Manager Tom Moses is here as well. Back in 1980, what was important and what really got the thing going was that we identified, it was for the high school addition and renovations to the existing high school facility. And what had to be done first was to identify what problems there were and how much was it going to cost. And so after we did that, then there was a debate and a long discussion about how to keep the cost down and whether or not to go forward. And ultimately we did, but not before there was a considerable debate over certain cuts that were made, but eventually it all got done. So I think that you're right, Mr. Chairman, that the way to proceed is first to identify what needs to be done and whether or not, if it's a considerable amount of money, and I think we all anticipate that it will be, whether or not the current location of the high school is the right place. But I think that before you can make a thoughtful decision on that, you first must determine what would be needed for the existing facility.
No, and I think that's what, I guess, good tonight as the school committee votes to have an RFP for a consultant formally. I think obviously the first key that we'll be looking at is what do the students actually need in a facility? And as Councilor Kennedy clearly articulated, that's the first discussion. And going further from there would be, simply wouldn't be wise until we know exactly what we're looking at. And then taking a look at a cost analysis in terms of what's the most feasible for the city of Lowell. I don't know if this is kind of the first time we've actually kind of rolled that out to the city council in any formal meeting. The school committee has asked and has filed motions that have asked the school administration to begin that dialogue with, I guess, really UMass Lowell, Middlesex, the city administration, and ultimately with the city council. But we thought at this time, since we're having a joint meeting, it would be a good idea, at least formally, to introduce having at least that discussion, having that kind of review, and to see where we would go next further on down the road. The way I liken it to is like the history of what you did when you did with the Greater Lowell Technical School, except for you'd be involved from the very beginning in terms of how that discussion would begin to take place. Where that discussion would go, really, I guess it would be up to what the students need and what ultimately the city council would determine would be the financial, most prudent thing to do for our students and ultimately for the citizens of the city. So I don't know if any other committee members have any comments or thoughts, or any of the city council have any comments or thoughts at this point. But we do want to get that discussion moving and take it from that point forward. Councilman Danza.
Well, I just want to point out that there was a major renovation that occurred about 8 to 10 years ago, where they added the second bridge, they added the end by the auditorium, they completely renovated Coburn Hall, and I thought they worked on science labs and some of the flooring in the new wing. So there was a lot of work done. I don't remember the exact, I thought it was $40-some million worth of work. So we've done a lot of work not too long ago at the high school. But I'm sure there's plenty more to do with just the large number of usage that it gets, both from the students during the day and from adult education in the evening, that we certainly need to consider what we need to do to maintain it and anything that we can do to impress the accreditation committee that will be coming soon to continue its accreditation.
No, and I think what I think we need to do at some point, in other words, have the councils actually tour the high school. There's been a lot of work that has taken place over the past few years, specifically a lot of the floor issues that you have in your capital plan, the new roof that added to the high school. But if you're looking at your work orders, and if you take a tour of the thing, the facility, especially the 1980, if you're looking at the gym facility or the field house, it leaks. None of the equipment really, the speakers don't work. It's the temperatures, the HVAC systems throughout the entire school have never been consistent. And the field house is a dominant example where it's 45, 50 degrees. You have different areas like the C house area where it's 45, 50 degrees, and you go over to the next hall and it'll be like 75, 80 degrees. So it is an issue, I think, if we want to bring in the consultant to kind of get a good, intelligent view of what is currently going on, and then take a look at what the facility would need to be competitive with not only the Greater Lowell Tech, but Tewksbury, with other schools. Bill Rick is going through the same process at this point. So if you look at your work orders alone, you'll see it's predominantly, a lot of them are the high school. And granted, it is probably one of the biggest buildings in the city, or multiple complexes in the city. So that's a given factor. But I think what we want to do is we come up to accreditation, making sure that it meets the standards of what they'll be looking at. Science labs, I know when you were on the school committee, was a major issue of yours. It continues, unfortunately, to be a significant issue. To an issue to the point where we're not adequately serving the students who are taking science courses. We do have great staff who are knowledgeable and are trying to design on their own some of these hybrid, high technology, high science labs. But we need really an expert to come in working with the school building authority to see where the monies would be and what is actually being approved. But it's something, unfortunately, is still an issue at the high school. Tonight, we'll be addressing a part of it with the RFP for the consultant, but I'd like to at least get an idea from the subcommittee as a whole. Would they think the idea of having at least folks from the community, a commission, if you will, working with a consultant to provide alternatives to the council and to the administrations as a whole, so we can get an intelligent view. When we begin the school accreditation, as you know, Councilor Mendonça, we're going to be, the 2-year time frame, we'll begin formally the process in September. And we'll begin it with a new headmaster and a new director of curriculum. So it's going to be pretty fast. And as you know, when you get into the facility part of it, you really got to have a lot of time to make sure you're geared up not only financially, but actually to get the actual work done. So I don't know if there's anybody who has any thoughts on at least beginning that dialogue, and if that's endorsed, at least we can bring that to the committee and to the council and select members to be on something that would be reviewing a consultant's report and providing alternatives to the, ultimately to the city council, because if there's any funding, you're the ones who are going to have to make those tough choices. I know Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. What I hope to get out of this meeting is, as we go back to talk about the science labs and the renovation work that we've done at the high school, I would imagine that's got to be 10 or 12 or 14 years ago. My time on the committee, we tried to renovate the science labs, and I don't think we ever really did it 100%. So my objective would be, first, with the high school, is to, sure, if get the consultants in, work through I think it's the Mass school building, yep, and, see what they recommend, and let's get on board, and let's get the high school up to today's standards, I guess, as far as science labs, whatever else we need, computers, things that are gonna obviously benefit the students, help out with the accreditation. I'd like to hear what the city administration has to say as far as evaluating all our school buildings, because I guess we should look at it in 2 or 3 tiers. I mean, obviously, we have the top tier with all the HVC and the rooftop units and heating and boiler systems, whatever, the most expensive type of maintenance that we have for these buildings, roofs, HVC. Then I'm looking at the middle tier. What do the kids need what do the schools need to function properly as far as computer systems, any renovations for classrooms, plumbing type work, things like that. And then on the third tier, we should have a plan for our general maintenance that's ongoing, the painting, the windows, the parking lots, anything, safety-related items, ceiling tiles, things that have always been a thorn in our side over the years. So I'd like to see come up with a 3-tier plan on how we're going to take care of these buildings and how we're going to go forward. That's what I'd like to get out of this meeting also. So if we have any thoughts on that, I'd like to hear from the administration and the school department. Thank you.
I don't know if City Manager Lynch, if you'd like to respond to that, or...
Sure, I think that, thank you. I think that the issues that Councilor Leahy brought up regarding the 3 tiers make sense. I think the top 2 that you mentioned with, the large sort of system elements and the items like computer systems or reconfigured classrooms, I mean, those are really something that should be included within the capital plan. We should go through there's a need to, and I think this has already really been taking place, and of course it can always be updated and improved, but you go through all the facilities and you identify the needs, specific needs, and you build them into your capital plan, and over the course of the next 5 years or thereabouts, you whittle away at the major ones and work your way down. You make the certain priorities and go from there. The third category of general maintenance, I think that's we're doing that, although we're doing it certainly with less resources than we probably need in terms of staffing, in terms of funding to make the necessary repairs as they arise. On a daily basis, we have staff, our DPW land and building staff in the school buildings on probably 70–80% of the time doing repair work, and it's to be expected when you have that many students going through a facility. But we are putting in place a new work order system that I think will do a good job of helping us coordinate that and manage that more effectively. I think that's the way we would address those. As far as the high school goes, if I could speak to that a little bit, I think that, the whole process is pretty simple. I mean, all we have to do is, if the high school is our priority in terms of what we want to do with that, I think we get in touch with the school building assistance people and, file a statement of interest with them that we're looking to do something with our high school, and they'll walk us through the entire process hand in hand in terms of bringing on the architect that you would have come out and review the building and review the program that takes place at the high school, and sort of identify the needs. Certainly, a building committee, I think, is required now under the new school building program. It's been 6-7 years since I've worked with one of those, but you would do something of that sort, and sort of work within an identified budget once you get some numbers all put together. And then you would, assuming that there's support for that, you go to the next stage of architectural drawings and construction once the school building assistance people, give you the go-ahead. So I think that, I sitting here, I just think that it's not as, this is something that takes place throughout the Commonwealth on a regular basis of having these projects move forward. And I think, it's certainly one that we can embark upon.
So just a quick question, City Manager. So basically, if the school committee, by going out to get a consultant at this point, is the right approach, the right step at this point. So the issue is not just the science labs, which we're trying to tackle. We're doing
Right.
a lot of things in a vacuum. You have a lot of HVAC issues, which are significant. You also have a lot of leaking issues, even with the new roof. Right. And we've done a lot of work, and we're going to add new doors, and we're going to be doing. What I don't think we should be doing is doing things in a vacuum. I think there should be a comprehensive plan that the council and ultimately the community says, this is what we want to do. Right. Now, my personal belief is we should keep the high school downtown, perhaps. Now, I might be completely wrong. Maybe we do need a new facility, but I think that's because it's such not only a philosophical sensitive issue, but it's also a serious financial issue. I think we should at least get some folks on board and see what do we actually need. And then actually, what does the council and ultimately, really the community, what does the community want for a high school? If it's going to be rained downtown, then we need to do serious infrastructure work, which is fine. I mean, it is what it is. If it's not, then obviously, if the community doesn't want to build a new high school, then it's going to be a serious issue that we need to, I think they take more time in terms of addressing that so the public's on board with it. And certainly, the council's well-informed when they're making their decisions in the capital plan, as well as you are well-informed when you're making those decisions.
Right. Well, I think that there's a need to bring on, if your question is, are we heading in the right direction of bringing someone on to work with the school department and the city administration in terms of identifying, what the needs are in that building, absolutely. And I do think a comprehensive approach is the way to go. I mean, if the city is willing to step up to the plate and put the money into that facility, it makes sense to do it in a comprehensive way, because then if you do the full-blown renovations, then you get the reimbursement on everything. If we're going out and we're spending now about hundreds of thousands of dollars on new doors. We can keep on whittling away at it like that, but if we really want to do a whole facility, then we do it. That's a priority. We have to get that done. But that's just an example. If that were folded in with a much larger project, then we could potentially get reimbursement on that whole thing. That to me is the better way to approach this. Again, that's the way it's done in most places.
No, and we would do it through this school building authority. I didn't mean it that way, but I want to at least get folks on board at the beginning of the project as opposed, to the middle of it. Mr. Conway, then Mr. Gignac.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Leary. Just a couple quick thoughts on this. Mr. Leahy mentioned a few minutes ago about the tier system here and being able to keep up what we actually fix. And I think it's something that has been missing for many years, not to have a preventive maintenance program in place. So if we are going to spend, and obviously we're going to spend quite a bit of money, and taxpayers' money, and I think that what's important is that we certainly put a preventive maintenance program into place, and it's something that, to be quite frank with you, certainly in the past, everything has been a knee-jerk reaction. When something takes place, then we go and we fix it. One of the problems that we have, and you know it as well as I do and everyone here, we all have received a number of telephone calls on the heating system at the high school. I went over there the other day, and I believe it's the interactive room up on the second floor in the new building. And that's where courses are via television from UMass. There was absolutely no heat in there at all. And I do believe that that room can probably hold about 40 or 50 students that would be taking courses. There's absolutely no heat. And a teacher told me that the kids actually huddle together for warmth in a setting like that. And that shouldn't take place. And I think, as you have mentioned, when we have our accreditation coming up for 10 years, 10-year accreditation, I mean, this is something that we have been talking about 10 years ago, to be quite frank with you. That was one of our problems. And, you know, it's the typical, you know, we have to order a part, we can't get the part, and so forth. And I think that the runaround has taken place, but we're at the point now where we have to fix these things. And it's, you know, I think it's important that our students have a safe environment. They also have a comfortable environment, and that goes obviously for our staff too. So I think that that's something that, you know, we certainly have to work on, and I congratulate the two committees working together for this common goal. But again, these are things that we hear all the time from teachers. I just heard the other day from up at the Wang, which I'm not going to get into, but they said they haven't had hot water up there for 3 years. I don't know if that's true or not, but fact is that, you know, we do have issues. Thank you.
Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention that actually, after the discussion, it came to my mind that the mayor has a motion on tonight's agenda to have the superintendent file a letter of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. But that also rung a bell in my head, a question for the superintendent. Have you been in contact with the School Building Authority within the past year or so?
Madam Superintendent?
We have, since the meeting that we had with them, we did not have a proposal that went in last year because we weren't at that level, but right now we are looking towards putting a proposal in, so we're in the process right now of looking to the future. As you know, for those of us who have worked together at the school committee side, we've looked at how we can improve things like science labs, you know, at a short term, but this comprehensive plan is very important, so we are moving towards the building authority to see what we can possibly do, and Mr. Lang and I are involved in that process now.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, just to give the council history, what we have done, the mayor and I both had a motion back in the spring to bring the school building authority and start working on science labs. They actually have visited Lowell High School back, I forget, it might have been March or whatever, I can't remember the exact time frame, taking a look at it. So what we're doing is moving forward with that, but I think in a sense, we're doing things in a vacuum. We want to make sure we're taking care of the whole facility. While science labs are incredibly important, you got to make sure the facility is actually the right facility, and is it being, you know, there are other costs and monies that the council might have to be coming forward to put up, as well as the school building authority. So the mayor has taken the initiative of actually contacting the school building authority, and we're able to get ourselves on a list for the science labs, if that's something we want, or have to take a look at the high school. But we want to make sure that we're also bringing in the council at this point to begin that dialogue. I don't know, Mayor, if you want to speak to that at all at this point, or?
Sure, just to clarify a few issues. The science lab initiative that had started back in the fall of last year wasn't quite an initiative. It was just really a way to segregate funds. So there is still a possibility, really, to come forward with a plan that both invests in new science labs, but also at the same time, you know, really focuses in on those extreme needs at the high school, whether it be the HVAC or other needs. So it's really about putting together an appropriate proposal that focuses in on those needs. So, you know, I'm not sure whether or not this is kind of premature. We do have an April deadline to meet, to be able to submit the letter of interest. That was the suggestion of the director of the building authority, and I think that we should move in that direction. It's something, as the manager said, that's done across the state, and I think that they'll be pretty helpful to the school department as we work through the process.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. That's good news to hear, but it's a good update to have in terms of the April deadline. We can still get onto that list, and it would include HVAC and other types of infrastructure for the schools. That's positive.
Just to further clarify, when we're talking about an entire high school being redone, the director, pointed out the fact that on their rating system, our old high school is actually rated a 1, and the newer high school is rated a 2.
Yep.
So in order to be able to, be in line for that funding, for that reimbursement, you'd have to be at a 4, pretty much. So although it's a smaller project, you do kind of, financially have to do it in this way, I think. A little bit piecemeal, but at least you get at some of the really significant issues there.
No, and I appreciate that. I think the piecemealing as far as finances are important, but I think we need to have an overall plan in terms of where we really want to go with the high school. Are we going to keep it downtown? Sure. Which frankly makes common sense from a financial standpoint, or is the facility our needs for what our students are trying to achieve? Is there some other plan that we should have? Put that plan in place and make sure the council at least understands where we're trying to go with it. But I do appreciate the fact that we're still able to get on the list for the building authority. That's a positive. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, or Madam Councilor Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just thinking that didn't the LDFC or the Lowell plan do some sort of a study on where they felt this high school should be? Do we have not, they already did a comprehensive and an in-depth study, so wouldn't we have any idea on what the findings were? I personally thought that the outcome was to keep the high school downtown, and I know for what it's worth, it probably isn't worth much, but in my opinion, I would just as soon keep it where it is. And I do know that the high school is relatively old. That's fine, and things go, HVAC, roof leaks and things like that. And that's understandable, but when you got a relatively new school like the Stocklosa School, please don't bring any of the accreditation team down there, because one room is like 85 and the next room is freezing. And when you talk about a capital plan in place to do what is necessary, the safety of the children outweighs anything else, and their environment to study, to learn. I know it's tough to have children learn, but if they're in a room and it's 85 and they can't function, I'm certainly sure that's tough. Those issues should be addressed. And I want to thank the manager, because he did send a team down there. They audited a part, and then they left, and the same problem is there. And I feel bad to keep reiterating that you have to go back. You have to go back, and it seems like an annual problem that I keep, addressing it to the city manager, and it's frustrating for me and the people that work at that school and have to teach at that school, and the children that have to go to that school and be under such a, it's tough if the room is freezing, like an air conditioning is on. It's all stemming from something wrong with the HVAC on the roof, and so it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me to have to tell you this, but anyway, plus it's a relatively new school. It shouldn't be happening. And we didn't get our bang for our buck over there, I'll tell you that, but that's my comment, sorry.
Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. I don't know what happened to the Lowell plan. I know that initially, a few years back, that they came to the school committee and wanted to be involved in the high school. And I think you're correct. The outcome was to keep the high school downtown, which, in my opinion, it should, with all its history. So, but we should welcome them to come back and offer their input. They're part of the downtown, obviously, and part of the city, and we'd like to invite them to be part of this. But, hopefully tonight we'll get the ball rolling. And I don't know if we wanted to schedule another meeting next month, but whatever your suggestions are tonight, keep this ball going and keep everybody involved, and let's move forward.
Okay. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Leary. As far as the Lowell plan document, I have been in touch with Jimmy Cook. He had sent a copy of that over electronically, and I've been looking through it. As assistant superintendent, I remember that report of the consultant who came in and talked to us about the downtown area. You know, there should be a little hotel. I just remember that was a really powerful presentation. And so it's a very good report. It's an excellent report. And so the perspective that we're looking at from the school department is to look at the NEASC findings, you know, as a first step. You really want a comprehensive plan, no question about it. But you need to look at those NEASC findings. What have we done? What haven't we done? And also look at that long-range plan right as we speak, and within the next week. We will have figures from our science department chair kind of saying, how can we make what exists get to standard? Technology-wise, what is that going to cost? So we're working on that right now. But those two documents, the former plan from the Lowell plan, and I have spoken to several people who are involved in that, and the NEASC findings are really the first look where we say, what do these kids need today? Yes, Lowell needs to have a high school, comprehensive high school in the future years. But we're talking about your kids who are at Lowell High School. What do they need right now? So we're kind of trying to look at a hybrid model, which will have information for our committee within a short period.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. I guess at this point, what we need to do is go on to the outstanding work slips. I don't know if Mr. Lang, if you give us a quick overview of where we're at today.
Well, if you would like to look at the report that I provided, we just broke up the individual schools as far as the outstanding work tickets that they were. We just categorized them by trade. And then obviously the report behind it just goes school by school with a little bit more detail. But it basically, I think, confirms some of our discussions that we've been having around some of the bigger items. HVAC is certainly a concern in many of the buildings. The school department did have a group come in 2007, 2008, and assess each of the HVAC systems in the buildings. And we've been incorporating the findings and the budgetary figures of those that study into the city's capital plan. So every year we go and we update the figures. And we're hoping this year to be able to recommend 4 or 5 substantial projects in the capital plan to have HVAC work done in several of the schools. Carpentry and plumbing are the other big ones. Obviously, there are different issues that are going to happen every day. Something that could have been fixed this morning could be broken tomorrow. But typically, when you look at the 3 trades going across the board, carpentry, HVAC, and plumbing are your bigger issues. We have had some impact in plumbing across the district this past fall. The city brought on a few extra plumbers, so that's really helped cut down on some of the work tickets in the plumbing area. But I think it's just continuing with that investment and really keeping the work going.
Thank you. Mr. Kennedy, Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you. Regarding the list, I think that we've made some progress in that the list has been whittled down from 2,500 items to over 800 items, but there's still a long way to go. It's occurred to me that the list is so long that there are items on this list that are small, little punch type items that require non-skilled labor to complete, but they probably will never get done just because they're so small. And what I had suggested last year, and I expect to suggest it next Tuesday at the city council meeting, is that the city manager work with the school department to develop a pilot program that would be comprised of high school kids from Lowell who would work next summer and try to knock off some of these. And I think if we can identify an amount of work that they can do and work with the unions to make sure that there's adequate supervision and that any union issues are taken care of, that we may be able to get to work from the bottom of the list and at least knock a couple of hundred of those items off. Window locks and that type of thing are small little things that probably take, 15 or 20 minutes hopefully to complete. But nobody's going to ever do those because they will be at the bottom of the list. And I would imagine that everybody would want to focus on the items that are larger and more compelling than these.
Counselor Leahy?
Thank you. I didn't watch that meeting last year, so I didn't see your suggestion. It's a good one.
Thank you.
My suggestion also was that if there's any way we could work to, I think it's a small price. If we hired 1 or 2 guys new to the city, they're, I would imagine they're at the lower end of the pay scale. You put them in the buildings and you let them do this work. I would imagine that with new employees, they have a 60-day trial type performance rating. You know, if you hire somebody and you tell them this is what we expect, if they don't perform, I would imagine that we can let them go. So if we hired 1 or 2 people, gave them a list of duties to do, I would think we could knock off a lot of work on this list. If it's beneficial at whatever the cost is to the city, you know, keep them aboard. And we'd wipe out half of this list in a year, I would think. I would think that's something that we need to explore again. I had brought this up years ago that we need to bring on some sort of a maintenance person that can do a little electrical, a little carpentry, a little plumbing. That didn't really seem to go anywhere. But there's got to be a way to have somebody who can do light maintenance, work for either the city or the school department, and do this, get this punch list out of the way, because we're not asking for a lot. We're just asking for somebody to come in and do their job and knock this list off. And whether it's staying in a school for 3 weeks and then you rotate them to the next school, and during that 3 weeks, they do a little painting, they do some very simple plumbing type work, they do some the ceiling tiles, they do some electrical covers and stuff, not meat and potatoes of electrical work, but there's things you can do. I would think that's the route to go, and it would probably help out the Department of Public Works, it would help out the school department, so I think that's one avenue we need to explore again.
Maybe what we can do is have the city manager and the superintendent of the school department look at both proposals, and maybe we can do both depending on what kind of money is involved. The reason I like having high school kids do the work is because it provides, in addition to getting the work done at an economical cost, it also provides summer employment for a certain number of Lowell kids, and so there's dual achievement through doing it that way. But there might be another level of work that would require maybe the people that you're talking about.
Just quickly, too, the manager and I guess the school administration sat down last year quickly at the end of the budget year and actually put a proposal with the custodians and the union and allowed, for example, teachers to come in and paint their rooms and other parents to fix schools. And we did this really kind of on the fly at the end of the budget year. So I think Councilor Kennedy's idea, as well as Mr. Leahy, it sounds like a great joint motion to begin now for the budget year. So I think that's something that is, we tried to do it a little bit last year at the end of the year. It took a little bit of time. Committeeman Ross Sikowicz.
Thank you. Just following up on what Councilor Kennedy mentioned with regard to incorporating high school students into that process, I mean, we have a partnership with Youth Build. I mean, that's their primary objective, is to build those skills in terms of building and repair and whatnot. And they actually have supervisors that follow them around and make sure that they're actually doing the job. I agree that, you know, we certainly need to, you know, there's certainly a need to provide some type of summertime employment for our children, and certainly gain some skills. Another option, Greater Lowell Tech. I mean, they have teams that go out throughout the year and perform service in nonprofit organizations, other schools, so on and so forth. The other point I wanted to make, now the initiative that was brought forward by the city to employ temporary plumbers, 90-day plumbers, that's proven to be extremely successful. Last summer, you had temporary plumbers that came in, and in one school, 95% of the plumbing outstanding work orders for plumbing issues were rectified in a matter of a day. And these are issues that had sat on the table for a year or more. So that's proven to be extremely successful, particularly they've come back recently. Again, the Wang School just had a whole mess of plumbing issues addressed today, in one day. That's phenomenal. So when I look at the summary of work orders broken down by category, so for instance, we have 300 open orders for carpentry throughout the district. So I would imagine that there are sort of low-skill repairs that are required, and certainly those repairs that require more skill. So I think it would be important to identify, exactly what those needs are, and maybe it's a matter of employing a similar technique in bringing in a 90-day carpenter to rectify those issues. Just a suggestion.
I don't know, City Manager, if that's something that you want to speak to.
Well, certainly some ideas that we've I appreciate the kind words regarding the plumbers, and we saw our need there, so we brought the plumbers on, and they've proven to be very successful. And we've done that on other trades that we use, not necessarily building related, but as we need temporary employees to come in and address a particular need at a particular time. And so certainly is we're trying to work with the school administration, and I think working very well in terms of addressing many of these capital and needs and maintenance needs. We're exploring all those opportunities, including Councilor Kennedy's idea of the high school students, sort of a SWAT team of maintenance people. And I do have to say that School Committee Leary mentioned the working with the union last year to bring in people to do the painting. 1705 worked very closely with us last year, the AFSCME unit, to make that happen. And they themselves got out there and put a lot of time in to do quite a bit of school painting that had really languished for far too long. So I think as we're already sort of paving the way for many of those same ideas to be moving forward this year, and as well as some other ideas that are being kicked around here in our discussions with 1705.
Just a quick question, just to City Manager. I guess one of the things that Committee Ross Sikowicz touched upon was the part-time plumbers. The feedback from their efforts it's been astounding. I mean, like today at the Wang, they had almost 20 different plumbing repairs that have been addressed in 4 hours, basically, that have been there for a couple of years. So I don't know who these people are or who you're hiring in particular, but if they were at the high school, I think, and they did repairs that could never be, for some reason, never fixed. And I'm not trying to be critical, but for whoever these folks are, you got to bring them on more often, because in all seriousness, the effect that they're having is amazing. Right. I don't know why that is. Don't care why that is. I just think the effect that they're doing is amazing. And anything you can do to bring on this type of help would be, it resonates. You have people actually call you up saying positive things about the bathrooms at the high school when these folks came in and fixed them. The Wang today, I'm sure I'm going to get phone calls tomorrow regarding it.
Yeah. Well, what happens is there's an accumulation of small things that need to be fixed. It sort of always gets set aside because the other plumbers are always off doing much more major projects. So this is a way for us to sort of hit at those. Then they're fixed, and then we wait a while, and there's another accumulation, and we can go in and bang those out. But we're always looking at our staffing levels too to see what's appropriate. We've come out through a very difficult financial time, and that has prevented us from doing certain things that we'd like to do. So we've used other techniques to make things happen. And but as we move forward, we need to continually evaluate that and make our decisions on what the priorities should be for the city in terms of the services that we deliver and the revenue stream that we have and so on.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I don't know if there's any other comments on the work orders. I think the staffing is, Councilor Mendoza, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, on the one hand, I'm pleased that a little under a year ago, we had almost 2,400 work orders open, and now we're down to 800, so about a third. What I see that still concerns me is the date of some of these go back to 2008, and we certainly want to see those addressed, but we seem to be on a trajectory that we're going to get to them. But of course, we know that there's constantly more being added into the system. Now, as I look into this, it's good that it has a date when they were put into the system. But what I find disconcerting is the number that are in progress. It seems like 800 of these are in progress, and I just know we don't have enough employees to be working on all these simultaneously. So I'm not sure who or how the status is determined, but I'm sure some of these are waiting for parts, et cetera. But I believe some of these are still open, and showing that they're in progress may give us the impression they're going to be fixed imminently, when in fact they might not be. And
In progress is just the code in the system. Once we enter the work ticket and it gets forwarded to DPW, it defaults, the status is then called in progress. So that just means it's an open work ticket. You could say open instead. The few that say reopened would be issues that a worker completed and then either something, wasn't completely fixed or it broke immediately thereafter. They would go in and just reopen that same ticket. But in progress technically just means it's an open ticket. It could have nothing going on right now. It could have a part. It's a broad category. It's just the way that the ticket's coded in the system.
all right, is there any way to put in the ones that are, identify the ones that are actually being worked on, so we have some idea of these are being taken care of now? There's people actively working to fix it, or will in this coming week, say, and to know which ones are not being worked on. I mean, in progress, they might not be worked in, is what I'm hearing.
Right, in progress basically just means it's a valid work ticket. We'd have to work with DPW to figure out, on a daily basis, like which ones they're addressing or what the category is as far as the weight that they're given to get them addressed. I honestly wouldn't know.
Just a quick question. I know the city manager said we're going to have a new work order system. I don't know if we could have some type of added on type of event that way. I don't know if that's something you could comment on, or.
I don't know enough about that system other than know that we've got people, they've been going through training and it's being rolled out to connect up with our overall financial management system, but we can certainly explore that.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd like to have a more informative status, so it gives us a better idea of what's actually happening and to improve our schools. The other thing I'd like to mention is, last year we had a tour of the schools that had some of the major problems, and I think that was very informative. So I would ask the chairs if maybe as we look at these further, if we schedule like the 3 schools with the most major issues and take another look. I'm sure the high school will probably be on there again, but maybe 2 other schools in addition, that we could actually see what some of these issues are and work to address them. In a sense, make it a priority. And I think that helped last year, and I think it would help again this year.
I think that's a great idea. Do you think that we should, if the high school is one of those, should we revisit the high school, or should we pick 3 new facilities?
Well, I would just say that if there's a large number of items at the high school and we're going to have a lot of work expected there, we should revisit them. I mean, things we saw last time may be fixed now, but there may be new things.
Okay.
And I mean, if it's not one of the top 3, then we could do a different school. But if it is, I think we should revisit the high school just to see what status it's in now.
I guess the next line item is really future action plan, so I guess that takes care of one future action plan. The second one, I know the school administration has sat down with the city manager and the CFO regarding our capital plan, and I believe our target date to update our side of it, incorporating it into the manager, I guess, is at the end of this month or middle of this month. So when you see the capital plan revised, the city manager has worked hard with Mr. Lang to, and you'd like to speak on, but he has worked hard to update that.
No, and I just a couple points. I do want to thank Mr. Lang and Superintendent Franco for the work that they've been doing, along with Brian Curley, in terms of updating that. I think that's important. The whole notion of having a capital plan is somewhat new to the city, and I think it's sort of planning that out, those types of investments out, and I think it's proving very successful. And I think it's also important to note that this year we're going to be increasing our capital budget. We had planned to spend, I think, about $4 or $5 million this year, but because of where we found ourselves financially last year, with our free cash position and setting that aside into our stabilization fund, we feel comfortable with increasing that capital investment this year to $12 million, which is it's not all for the schools, but it's a big chunk of it will be, and it'll allow us really to get into the buildings and making those improvements that we need to make.
I think Mr. Mendonça, Councilman Mendonça's comments are important. I think that we do take a look, probably before we put our capital plan in place, before you take any votes, high school should definitely be on the top of the list, but other schools, there have been significant improvements, and we have been working much more effectively together. And again, I'm echoing this again, I think the staffing from the plumber side, when those gentlemen or women, I'm not even sure who they are, came in, there was dramatic effect immediately, and it was noticed by folks. So I think we got a good action plan going forward, both from the mid-city side as well as the school side. I don't know if there's any other comments, Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. I just want to emphasize one more thing. When you talk to the staff and the students in the building, you know, it may seem like a small thing, but when the painting is kept up and the lockers are kept up and the floors and the doors, those little things make a big difference for the school. If you want the kids to take care of the school, you got to show them that we're taking care of the school. And the same with the staff. You know, that's why we want the bathrooms working. And we want the bathrooms clean and in shape, because these little things are going to affect how people feel about their building and take care of it. So it may seem like a small thing, but the small things will benefit us greatly in the long run, because I firmly believe the schools will be, the respect for the building and the school will be that much higher if we start with the little things and show that, you know, it's a nice school building, it's your building, take care of it, and I think that'll go a long way. Thank you.
Any other comments or concerns? Counselor Kennedy?
No, I just would like to point out that from the school committee, Kim Scott is here and Dave Conway. I don't know if we mentioned that, but they should get credit for being here as long as they're here, as well as Mayor Murphy, who spoke earlier. And I think at the beginning of the meeting, I acknowledged Joe Mendonca, who actually is a member of the committee, but just consider that to be an extra plug, that's all. That's about it.
Since we're doing plugs, Bob Gignac is here as well, as is Kristen Rosikowicz. You've got the members of the facility committee. So I think we're all plugged out, but I want to thank the administration for both the schools and the city for taking the time, and for folks from the DPW staff as well as some of our custodians for coming out tonight. I think it's important that we continue the dialogue. I think we can do their school tours before the end of February and go from there. Thank you very much.
Move to adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, guys.